Ladies and gentlemen, let us strip away the comfort of polite language for a moment and face a hard truth. Stupidity is not just a personal flaw, it is a societal hazard. When a man who does not think makes a decision, he does not suffer alone. His foolishness walks beside him like a shadow, infecting everything he touches, his work, his family, his nation. You see, stupidity is not the absence of knowledge alone. It is the refusal to learn, the rejection of growth, the arrogance of believing one already knows enough. And worst of all, it's the habit of speaking loudly when one should be listening. The most dangerous people in the world are not the ones who know nothing. They are the ones who know little, but act as if they know everything. They ignore facts, deny reason, and refuse correction. And that behavior, my friends, creates a ripple effect, damaging relationships, ruining businesses, collapsing systems, and endangering progress. In a family, it's the parent who disciplines with anger instead of wisdom. In a workplace, it's the boss who mistakes loud orders for leadership. In government, it's the official who builds policies on ego rather than evidence. These people are not villains. They are simply thoughtless, but their lack of thought creates real villains, real victims, and real suffering. The world does not collapse under the weight of evil alone. More often, it breaks down under the influence of the unwise who believe they are wise, and the uninformed who think they are fully equipped to lead, teach, or judge. When ignorance is combined with certainty, it becomes a dangerous force. One that refuses to learn, denies error, and continues blindly forward while dragging others with it. Most people assume that a lack of intelligence means inaction, that stupid people simply stay in their corner and do no harm. But that is not how it works. In the real world, it is the confidently ignorant who make the most noise. They offer opinions as facts. They give advice without experience. They lead without knowledge, and they act without considering the consequences. Look at your daily life. Think of the co-worker who insists they know better, but refuses to read instructions. Consider the friend who spreads misinformation without verifying a single fact. Remember the family member who offers parenting advice without raising a child. This pattern is everywhere. People acting with certainty in areas where they have no clarity. This is not harmless. This is the soil in which disasters grow. In business, the confident fool costs more than the honest amateur. One wrong decision made by someone who thinks they know but doesn't can crash a project, destroy team morale, or bring a company to its knees. In relationships, ignorance leads to broken trust, because a person who doesn't understand communication or emotional intelligence will damage those closest to them, even while believing they're doing the right thing. In leadership, we've seen it far too often. Policies made from pride instead of principle, and laws built on fear instead of facts. These choices don't just fail, they ruin lives. The real threat is not ignorance alone, but ignorance wrapped in confidence and delivered with force. That is what makes it so dangerous, because once a person becomes sure of their wrong ideas, they shut the door to growth. No advice reaches them, no data convinces them, no experience humbles them. They live in a fortress built by ego and walled by delusion. And from there, they make decisions for others. This is why education is not just for personal development. It's a social responsibility. When a person trains their mind, they reduce the threat they pose to others. When they become aware of what they don't know, they stop pretending to be an expert in everything. This is the foundation of humility, and humility is the gateway to real intelligence. We often romanticize confidence. We tell people to believe in themselves, speak up, and lead boldly. But without the discipline of thought, confidence becomes recklessness. It becomes the fuel for bad ideas, stubbornness, and careless leadership. There is no virtue in being loud if you're wrong. There is no strength in being sure when you should be studying. True confidence is earned through understanding, not volume. Now connect this to what we've already learned. Stupidity is not just a character flaw, it's a societal hazard. And this hazard grows in places where education is replaced by ego, where questioning is replaced by declaring, and where learning is replaced by shouting. People who refuse to admit they are wrong become blind to reality. And blind people who refuse help are the ones who walk straight into danger, and often take others with them. This is not about mocking those who know less. It is about recognizing the cost of pretending to know more than we do. It's about understanding that ignorance is curable, but only when it's paired with humility, not arrogance. The problem is not that people don't know. The problem is that they refuse to accept that they don't know. When ignorant confidence goes unchecked, it rarely stays isolated. One person's foolishness, when mixed with authority or influence, becomes a catalyst for widespread consequences. That is the tragic power of stupidity. It multiplies. Not because it is powerful in itself, but because it moves unchecked, unchallenged, and unexamined. Where the wise pause to think, the foolish rush to act. And in that rush, they ignite a chain reaction of errors that others are forced to clean up or suffer from. Take a workplace example. A manager who lacks technical understanding may implement a poorly designed system because it looks efficient. The team, knowing better, tries to warn them, but they're dismissed. The system fails, productivity crashes, and deadlines are missed. Blame is passed down, stress rises, people quit. What started as one uninformed decision now costs the company money, morale, and talent. And yet, to that manager, the problem was never their lack of understanding. It was always someone else's fault. This is not hypothetical. It's happening in offices, factories, hospitals, and schools around the world. And what causes it isn't malice, it's mental laziness. It's the unwillingness to ask, do I actually understand this? Should I consult someone smarter before acting? But foolish pride rarely asks questions. It makes declarations. The same pattern applies in families. A parent, operating on outdated beliefs or second-hand advice, may discipline a child in damaging ways. They may confuse control with love or fear with respect. The child grows up emotionally stunted, perhaps resentful, repeating the same cycle with their own children. Now we have generational pain rooted in one person's refusal to evolve their thinking. That is the ripple effect of ignorance, subtle at first, but devastating in time. In communities, the cost rises even higher. A local leader may reject expert recommendations for infrastructure or public health, preferring the approval of the crowd over the judgment of the qualified. Roads go unmaintained, health risks spread, businesses decline, and trust in leadership erodes. People suffer because one person, in a position of responsibility, refused to let intelligence guide their choices. They didn't need to be evil, they just needed to be convinced they were right when they were wrong. This pattern extends to entire nations. History is littered with examples of empires, economies, and governments that collapsed, not from outside attack, but from internal incompetence. Poor financial policies, ideological stubbornness, unqualified appointments, and reckless decision-making have all led to famine, civil unrest, and economic collapse. Behind those events were not monsters. They were people who thought they were too smart to listen, too proud to ask, too stubborn to learn. But let's bring it closer to home. Think of how misinformation spreads online. A single person, someone who read a headline but not the article, shares a false claim. 10 people believe it and share it again. Within hours, hundreds are misled. Some of them change how they vote. Some refuse a life-saving treatment. Some develop hate toward a group that never wronged them. All because one person didn't pause to verify a fact. That's the scale of modern stupidity. It's no longer local, it's viral. This is why we must stop treating foolish behavior as merely a personal choice. When someone makes bad decisions in private, yes, it's their responsibility. But when those decisions affect teams, families, or the public, we cannot ignore them, because the effects are not theoretical, they are real. People lose jobs, children grow up broken, citizens suffer. All because one person refused to take thinking seriously. Stupidity doesn't need intention to be dangerous. It just needs motion. Once it moves, it spreads. Through systems, through relationships, through institutions. And unless someone strong enough stands up and says, "This is wrong, let's do better," it continues to spread. That is how good societies fall, not through the evil of a few, but the foolishness of many who thought their choices only affected themselves. Once we understand how foolish decisions create ripple effects that destroy lives, relationships, and systems, we are left with one question: what's the antidote? The answer is neither complicated nor glamorous. It is mental discipline. The ability to pause, to think deeply, to learn continuously, and to act with purpose. True intelligence has never been about knowing everything. It has always been about having the humility to seek truth and the strength to master one's impulses. A dangerous person is not always someone evil. A dangerous person is often someone who cannot control their mind, who cannot delay gratification, who reacts instead of reflects. Without discipline, even the most educated individual can become destructive. And without critical thinking, even a good-hearted person can be misled into believing and spreading harmful ideas. That is why wisdom is not just about information, it's about how you use it. We are living in a time when information is more accessible than ever, and yet true wisdom is increasingly rare. Why? Because the discipline to think critically, to sort truth from noise, to separate facts from emotion, and to challenge our own assumptions, is rarely taught and even more rarely practiced. People prefer easy answers. They prefer validation over truth, and that preference, left unchecked, leads directly back to the kind of confident ignorance we discussed earlier. Look around in any environment, be it a school, office, government, or household, and you'll find the same pattern. Those who excel over time are not necessarily the loudest, the most educated, or the most connected. They are the ones who ask the right questions, observe patiently, learn from others, and apply what they know with care. Their power is not noisy, it is rooted in thought. They are dangerous only to ignorance itself. Critical thinking is not simply skepticism. It is the habit of examining evidence, understanding context, identifying bias, and remaining open to correction. The person who thinks critically is not easily manipulated. They are not swayed by emotion or tribalism. They do not act based on hearsay, and when they do not know something, they say so, and then they go find out. This mindset creates strength, not just for the individual, but for everyone around them. In contrast to the ripple effect of foolishness, the disciplined mind creates a ripple of stability. One wise leader can stabilize a team. One thoughtful parent can break a generational cycle. One responsible citizen can shift the direction of a community, because every wise action, like every foolish one, echoes beyond its origin. But wisdom is not inherited. It is cultivated, It comes from study, observation, and most of all, reflection. Reflection is what turns experience into insight. Without it, people keep repeating the same mistakes, unaware they are even mistakes. That is why some people grow older but never wiser. They collect years but not understanding, and understanding only grows when a person makes space to question their own habits, their own beliefs, and their own thinking. Self-discipline, too, is a form of intelligence. It's the ability to do what is right even when it is not easy. The fool chases comfort. The wise build strength. Self-discipline means reading when you feel like scrolling, listening when you feel like interrupting, holding back when you feel like attacking. It is not glamorous. It is not immediately rewarded. But over time, it builds the type of person others trust and follow. In this world, those who rise are not always the most talented. They are the most consistent, the ones who show up, think clearly, adapt wisely, and hold themselves to standards higher than the world demands. They are not seduced by shortcuts. They know that true progress requires patience, effort, and integrity. That is the foundation of real power, power that creates rather than destroys. And this, finally, is how we reduce the threat of stupidity in society. We commit to the discipline of thought. We challenge ignorance by embodying wisdom. We break the ripple of foolishness by creating ripples of clarity, of responsibility, of education. We do not wait for systems to change. We change ourselves first. Because no policy can substitute for personal responsibility, and no leadership can be effective if the minds of people remain undisciplined. Power in its purest form is not control over others. It is control over the self-control over your reactions, your decisions, your thoughts, and your direction. The world does not need more noise. It needs more people who think before they speak, learn before they lead, and build before they judge. That is the way forward. That is how wisdom wins.